The largest invertebrate on Earth was, until quite recently, an animal nobody had ever watched. For centuries, everything science knew about it arrived secondhand. A beak recovered from the stomach of a whale, a ring of scars on the whale's skin, a pale body failing on a beach. The animal itself stayed where it lives in the dark, below the reach of ships. The giant squid, Architeuthis dux asterisk, was given its scientific name in 1857 by the Danish zoologist Japetta Steenstrup, who assembled the species from exactly that kind of evidence, beaks, fragments, and the testimony of strandings, without ever seeing one whole. The animal he described lives in the deep ocean worldwide, in the cold midwaters far below the sunlight. A mature female is measured in the order of 12 meters, around 40 feet, from her fins to the tips of her two long feeding tentacles, though the tape measure has rarely met a fresh specimen, and older, larger figures in the literature come from bodies that had stretched. 8 arms do the holding. The 2 tentacles, much longer, do the catching, striking out with clubs studded in toothed suckers. And set into the head is the largest eye in the animal kingdom, on the order of 27 centimeters across, about 11 inches, the size of a dinner plate. For most of scientific history, the way to study this animal was to study what had eaten it. Sperm whales dive past 1,000 meters to hunt, and squid beaks are the one part the whales cannot digest. A single whale's stomach can carry the beaks of its recent meals the way a ledger carries entries, and by counting beaks, biologists could estimate how common the squid must be. Abundant, it turns out, far more abundant than the empty record of sightings suggested. The whale's skin carried the other half of the story. Rings of scar tissue, left by tooth suckers, the marks of encounters no person had ever witnessed. The animal itself finally appeared in September 2004, off the Ogasawara Islands south of Japan, where a team led by Tsunami Kubodra lowered a baited line with a camera into the deep and brought back the first photographs of a living adult giant squid in its own habitat. 8 years later, in the same waters, the first video followed. The technique that worked was not a brighter light but a quieter one, a small lure built to imitate the glow of a jellyfish in distress, an invitation rather than a searchlight. In 2019, the same approach with the same camera system recorded a giant squid in the Gulf of Mexico, striking at the lure and withdrawing into the dark. The footage corrected the animal. The strandings had suggested something passive, a soft drifting body that waited for food to pass. The living squid is nothing of the kind. It approaches with intent, holds its position, and attacks in a single reaching strike of the tentacles, an ambush hunter built for a place where meals are rare and missing one is expensive. It is worth being plain about why this took until the 21st century. The giant squid is not rare, and it is not hiding. It lives at depths where sunlight has already given out, in water that crushes unprotected instruments, spread thin across the largest habitat on the planet. Submersibles arrive bright, loud, and pushing a pressure wave ahead of them. Everything a deepwater predator with a plate-sized eye is built to notice. For an animal that detects faint glows at distance, the visitors announced themselves long before they could see anything. The deep ocean was not keeping a secret. It was simply not being watched on its own terms. That is the condition this whole arc of episodes lives in. The deep sea is the largest environment on Earth and the least observed, a place where the ordinary state of knowledge is inference. Beaks standing in for populations, scars standing in for behavior, a few minutes of video standing in for a life that may run for years. The giant squid is not the deep ocean's monster. It is the deep ocean's measure of how much can be deduced from residue and how much was waiting for somebody to arrive quietly. Somewhere below the root of every ship that crosses deep water, there are animals like this one, holding in the dark midwater with an eye the size of a plate, open, gathering the little light there is.